Well, good morning. Thank you for helping us with this interview. Could you tell us who you are and what drives you? What are your passions?
So my name is Morgan Finn, and what drives me, I love writing and communicating and helping others feel comfortable enough to express themselves and making people feel welcome, and also doing work that makes me feel rewarded, like I'm moving the needle, no matter how small. That really makes me excited.
Interesting. Where did that come from?
Where did that come from? I think when I was younger, I just had this sense of like, I would be really, I mean, maybe normally that's everyone, but I would be really upset when things were unfair. But then I kind of grew up and it started being like, okay, I don't like, I was really into Jane Goodall, so I'm like, the chimpanzees, we got to save the chimpanzees. So I would get into these efforts, and now I'm like older, I'm kind of more like in tune with my passions, and I align my passions with what drives me. But I've been writing and communicating for forever. I still have the stacks of my old diaries, so.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. We may go there a little bit later.
Oh, perfect. Oh, I've got lots of material.
So where do you work, and what's the role of that entity?
So I work, I'm a joint position between the Liberal Arts Action Lab, which we're here right now, and the Connecticut Data Collaborative. And so the same title, I'm a communications and program assistant. For the Action Lab side of things, I handle the development of the communications that running our social media channels, and when kind of each phase of the Action Lab requires some sort of like communication regarding whether it's the presentations or recruiting students. Then there's this other piece of this space and kind of being the buffer, like when someone walks in, I'm greeting them, helping them. Also when something goes wrong in the space, I'm the first one that I contact. I'm a lazy liaison with the landlords. And then also events. So when someone wants to have an event here, whether it's a Trinity department or an external group, I work with them to reserve the space and kind of coordinate their event. And then I also provide like program support to the actual Action Lab program.
Okay. And what would be your title? Or what is your title?
So communications and program assistant.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And who do you work with? Who's your boss? Just give us a sense of the organizational structure.
Yeah, so I have two bosses. So I have Megan Brown as the director of the Action Lab, and then my role at CT Data is Michelle Reardon Knoll. That's my boss for that organization.
Okay.
Right.
Great. All right. And then there's a collaboration between two colleges, right?
Right.
Can you say more about what that is, what the objectives are, kind of the bigger mission of that?
Right. Yeah. So, one of the biggest things about the Liberal Arts Action Lab, it is a partnership between Trinity College and Capital Community College. And so, definitely one of the objectives, because Capital is like right there, it's right in the heart of the city. And there are a lot of folks that like attend Capital are Hartford residents. So they really provide kind of this knowledge of the city that we're working in. While in Trinity, people are mostly they can come from all over. I mean, there's some Hartford residents. And so kind of working together to teach students group dynamics so they can like work together in a group, they can have project management, and they can work with folks that don't come from the same backgrounds as they do. For example, I attended a community college my first 2 years, and so I really loved that. I loved to work with like the non-traditional students, like because they were older, they had jobs, they had kids, they were like ready to go, and I always wanted to be in a group with someone that was older. So that is something I think that really helps and that we're working for in the Action Lab, is to kind of create this partnership and with folks that definitely know Hartford and can also help inform the projects as well.
Got it. Okay. So you attended an event like you're trying to coordinate now. Is that true, or is something similar?
So I attended.
I think what I heard you say was,
Yep.
I really enjoyed my community college time.
Yes.
When I engaged with non-traditional students, if
Yes.
you will, kind of the working people looking to get educated.
Yeah.
And is that what you're coordinating now, those type of learning opportunities?
That's more of like Megan is doing the learning opportunities, but I do interact and like I engage with all of the students, and I
Yep.
definitely try to make them feel, you know, welcome when they're here, and that's like a really important thing for me.
Yep.
I do help coordinate the digital poster fair, which is the presentation at the end of the semester, just kind of making sure that we have, you know, the food, the setup, everything is, but that's when I was in a community college, I was a writing tutor, so that I was able to kind of get engaged with the students that way.
Okay. Where I was going with that question was,
Yeah.
I wanted to hear more about why that was exciting to you to intersect and interact with students of that type.
Yeah, that's exciting for me because, well, I just enjoy people's stories. I've always loved, again, writing and storytelling, and learning, being able to engage with the students and learn from them. It makes me passionate because it broadens my perspective, as well as I'm trying to learn more about Hartford. And so when they'll like come and talk to me about, you know, oh yeah, this used to be here, and they have like a knowledge even of this space, like, oh, this used to be like Spree Restaurant, and kind of just hearing their perspectives and where they're coming from and why they wanted to choose these specific projects. Because usually when they, you know, pick a project team, there's something that they've related to in the project. Like, you know, I chose this project because, oh, I was interested in learning more about this, or I had a family member that went through addiction, so I wanted to, you know, join this project about addiction treatment. So I really enjoy that human connection and the human storytelling and seeing people kind of grow into themselves.
Okay, great. So the process we want to examine is a student recruitment process.
Yes.
And that's for certain projects where these collaborations occur?
Yes.
Okay, can you describe some examples of projects? I think you just alluded to a few.
Yeah.
And how frequent they happen, and like maybe the current cycle, like where are you today with this?
Right. So what we do is we have teams of student and faculty. We have them apply to we put about 6 projects out for the proposal period. So we have the Hartford community partners send us these proposals. You know, they usually send us more than we can take on in a semester, so we have the Hartford Resident Advisory Board. They prioritize them. From there, we have teams of students and faculty apply for each project, and they can list all their preferences. They can apply for as many projects as they want. And so then we put, based on availability and interest and what your preference was, we put them into project teams. So for this semester, we have the Black Heritage Project team, which is working with the Hartford History Center. They're interested in the first, learning more and raising awareness about the first Black congregational church right on Talcott Street. There's addiction treatment, which is working with Intercommunity Healthcare, and they are looking for like what are the best addiction treatment models, because that's something that's really facing the city. And so there's also HIV community health. Then there is arts education, and I always like forget the last one, but I'm going to say it is, there's arts education, HIV community health. You know what, I'm losing the last
That's
one.
fine. Yeah,
But
no problem.
they kind of run, what I'm trying to say is they run the gamut of, like, they go from like, you know, humanities to more
Yeah.
sciences, so that liberal arts. Then
And
they
it's
meet.
based on semester?
Yep, per
Okay.
semester, yep.
Yep, okay, great.
And then as a whole, they meet together as a whole on Mondays for research methods. So like last week, Megan talked about how do we come up with a good research question? What's the criteria for a good research question? This week, I think they're going to be talking about ethics, like ethical research. How do we involve our community partners more in the research process? But then they'll meet Tuesdays through Thursdays as a team, you know, with just in their individual teams, and then kind of focus more on what the team has to do. So taking what they learned on Monday and applying it to that project on Tuesday through Thursday whenever they come here.
Okay, all right, so there's community-based projects.
Right.
Prioritized by a board.
Yep.
And then there's an application process.
Yes.
And then teams get divided up. And then there's routines like you just suggested around every Monday we do this.
Right, exactly.
And that last semester, all semester long.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Great, understood. And then tell us a bit about the process to get students, the recruitment process.
Okay.
Yep.
So we kind of break it up into like the more digital materials. This is something we recently did, and then what are the kind of print forward-facing materials. So the first step is after the Hartford Resident Advisory Board prioritizes the proposals. From there, like say that's on a Friday, that next Monday we want to start putting out, that next week we want to start putting out print materials for recruitment. So we have to make print materials like posters, and so there's postering the Trinity campus and then postering the Capitol campus, and also for Capitol specifically, they need their materials approved. So working with two different kind of systems for approval. And then when so the project information has to be on the poster, so it's not like we can do like a generic poster, because we found that students really were interested in like the project names. Like they would go to their professor and be like, I want to be in this team. And so they were really interested in that aspect. So we really want to make sure, and we've had success, especially last semester, with putting project specific information on the marketing materials. So that's, designing, getting them approved and printed, and then postering all over. And then we have the social media aspect of it, so creating a social media schedule, and making sure that the partners are constantly being tagged, and students, and we have to flag the social media for Trinity's communications and then Capitol's communications. And then there's also something we did recently, starting last semester, is we created info packets for faculty and Trinity, or Trinity and Capitol faculty, because we found that faculty were the ones that were like, hey, they would tell their students, you'd be a really great fit for this. So we were like, we don't have a personal relationship with these students, but faculty do. So creating both an email for both Trinity and Capitol faculty, and then creating kind of like a separate like fact sheet for requirements, because Trinity's requirements and what the Action Lab fulfills is separate from what will fulfill Capitol's requirements. So again, something that again needs to be addressed on the print materials, like the postering, making sure that that's very clear. And so there's also an email that needs to be sent to both Trinity students and then Capitol students. So just making sure those messages are tailored to both. And then we have tabling. I do it more frequently at Trinity's campus. I just go out and hand out flyers, and making sure that we get that forward facing kind of contact. So
okay. And out of the 5 or 6 programs,
Yep.
Do you have 100% acceptance, or get to the levels that you want to?
I think that having the acceptance, I feel like at this point we accept everyone pretty much, or there's some sort of, we just recently last semester we had a pretty high enrollment, but what ends up happening is because there's especially when it comes to spring to fall, there's something called the summer melt, so people kind of start to drop off. But we just last semester we had the highest that has ever been, highest for the Action Lab enrollment, as well as recruitment. So
Can you give us a sense of how many?
I want to say we had at least 45 people that applied, and so we have 24 people and that are in the program. So either between that, they've either, sometimes they're like, oh, sorry, I can't. A big thing is fitting it in my schedule, because it's Capitol is, they're right there, but Trinity, they have to come on the bus, and that's an entirely new navigation and challenge, but fitting it also in their schedules, and so that's like one of the challenges for that.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Speaking of challenges, where is it most challenging in that process that you just described?
I think and even me talking about it, I'm like, because this is going to be really great, because I'm thinking about this stuff right now. So our proposal period ends on February 28th, and my boss and I were looking at the calendar, and it's just like, okay, right from March, beginning of March, that Monday in March, it's just like, it's time to hit the ground running. Like, just having very little time between getting hearing about the projects and like finally getting them finalized to having to promote them. There's a very small window, and also just managing the two kind of institutions, the processes for each institution, and making sure you follow up. And okay, so for this graphic, we want to make sure X is highlighted, but for Trinity's poster, we need to make sure that this is highlighted. So just managing the two institutions in terms of the approval process, following up, and just keeping everything in line and in order together.
Okay. And who do you interact with these institutions? What roles?
So for Trinity, it's Megan Brown. So she's technically like a Trinity staff member, and she's the director of the Action Lab. So I'm working with her.
And she can make decisions
yes.
and all that? Okay.
Yep. And then there's the Action Lab's faculty director for Trinity is Jack Doherty. So he's really helpful with, he will deliver the packets because he knows the faculty member. He's been there for a long time. So he is willing, he's like, oh, I have these personal relationships.
Yeah.
And then the marketing folks over at Trinity just to send their flyers and things like that.
Yeah. Can you talk about roles? Like who in marketing?
Who in marketing?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be, there's Carolyn DeVoe. She's digital marketing strategist or coordinator. Then there's the social media strategist, Kelly. So they work to help me with getting the digital materials.
Okay,
out.
so on the Trinity side, I think in the liberal arts, I think I'm hearing 4 or 5.
Yes.
And then there's the community college side.
Right.
Too, right?
Right.
How many people there?
So there's the first one I think of is Jeff Partridge. So he is the Action Lab faculty director for Capital, and so he helps with again with he'll send the emails to the marketing folks. So that's Charlene Charlene is the interim director of marketing for right now.
Yep.
At Capital, so he forwards those materials on for her to get approval, and then there's one other. Megan might, talk with some other faculty from Capital, like Josiah Ricardo is one of the first people I can think of. Just being let your students know, talking with students, but Jeff really just handles a lot of the, here's an email I want to send. Can we send it? And he's working with me to tailor the message to thinking,
Yeah.
oh, well, Capital students would relate more to this or anything like that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's lots of people involved, it sounds like.
Yes, a lot of
and
cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah. So there's some timing concerns. There's a process of approval, and getting down to details on what you say and what you show on
Yes.
posters and so on.
Yes.
Can you think of a memorable time, a real challenging time, where this was really tough to do? Was there one recent, for example?
When
Where all of that was just really challenging. Is there a specific example that you can describe to us?
Yes. So I'm thinking about this time last semester, and so we were trying to make sure everything, I was getting everything out on time, and then I had given something to Jeff, who is the faculty director at Capital, and he was just he looked at something and he was we need more changes, because certain information needs to be included in this so that students aren't confused. And then we had when I made the edits to the flyer that he requested, it was like the marketing person was like, well, it looks too cluttered. And I'm like, I was just like, well, he wants the information on there. I understand, like, you want, the graphics have to look pretty. But it was just kind of like, and the thing is, that's not like a 1-second conversation. This is like, okay, email Jeff. Jeff sends it back. Charlene sends me an email. Then I have to make these changes. And it's just kind of like constantly going like a back and forth.
Yep.
So that's something I remember.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'd like to introduce a tool
Okay.
called a journey map.
Yes.
And I'll show that in front of you.
Yes.
And I want you to think of that example that you just described as a journey that you go through, a journey of those process steps.
Yeah.
And then could you plot out how you felt at each of those steps?
Okay.
And actually, I can write this if you want to just talk it out. Because
Yeah.
I think there's a situation where you had a poster, was it?
Yeah, a poster.
To get
right,
approved.
to get approved to be in the elevator, which is like a high traffic area.
Okay,
Right.
okay, great. And then you engaged Jeff with that.
Yes.
All right, so you.
So I was like,
how
really.
did you communicate?
So I was excited because I was like, woo, the poster is done. We did it, Jeff. And then he's like, okay, well, I would like to add this. And then I was like, that's fine because like feedback is, that's something that I consider, but I was just like maybe a little less like, because I was like, okay, let me make sure this is done.
Okay, and how did you feel? Like, where would you put this on the elevator of
I would
promotion?
just put a little, like,
Just a
because
little?
it wasn't, it wasn't like a big deal, but I was like, okay. And then so I made the edits to that and sent it to Jeff. And then after that, I was kind of like, okay, now it's done. Okay. And then Charlene wrote me about the formatting of the posters, and so I was like, oh man, like not.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you resubmit it, how did you feel after you take it on Jeff's
I
comments?
felt like I was like, okay. I felt like back to feeling
okay.
being good, because I was like, all right,
Launch time.
launch time. I want to launch. It's just like you want to go.
But then Charlene. Said, wait a minute.
And then was
Okay.
like, and kind of pointed out some things which were helpful, but it was just frustrating to have to, again, like, especially when one poster is fine for another campus, and then having to be like, you want to say, well, it was totally fine, like it works really well, and I understand because that's like her role for the marketing, and then,
let's see. Do you do it in a serial fashion? So you go to Jeff first, and then Charlene second.
exactly,
Okay.
yeah, yes,
Got it. Okay. So this was an email to her about the poster, and then she gave you some feedback.
Yeah, she gave me
Okay.
some feedback, and then I finished it. I was a little worried because she was just like, she was just talking about readability, and I was like, oh my goodness, I was kind of like, again, it's just like they looked for like I looked at them and I was like, they look like they can be readable, and like the readability is pretty good, and usually I wouldn't want to put something out that's not readable.
Right.
And like kind of formatting, and there's this also feeling like kind of misunderstood, because I was like, when you have like different materials on the web, you have to make sure that they're sized for the platform that they're on. And I had done that, and then she saw my poster and thought that was just going to be like the social media, and of course, like, it'd be really hard to read on social media because it's an 18 by 24, and that's like big. So again, this feeling of being like misunderstood, like, no, wait, like, I did do all this other work too. It's just, this is just a poster. I was just like the image that I'd like you to kind of look at. So made the edits.
So you were trying to get her focused on specific feedback, and she was taking the whole set of information
Right.
into account?
Exactly.
Okay. So
yeah.
and this was all being communicated via email or live?
Yeah, via email.
Email, okay.
Yes.
And how many emails would that take?
So I sent my email to Jeff. Jeff said, okay, I'm going to, tell Charlene. Jeff came back with Charlene's feedback. And then I sent a message to Charlene. and just wanted to like, you know, want some more specific feedback. And also I wanted to show her that I had other formats for the materials.
Yep.
So like, I'm like, oh wait, we have like, you know, I have them sized for social media, but this is just the poster. So what was that? I think about 4 emails. Yeah.
And how much time is going by?
It's just, I know it's definitely a couple of days, just because like Charlene is the interim director, so that makes her very busy. Yeah, so some time is going by. Yeah.
So there's a few emails going back and forth here.
Yeah.
How's your emotional change with each email?
I would say, because the second email that she sent back was just like very, she said some nice things. She was like, oh, you know, she's like, I love the design, but XYZ. And I was like, oh, that's like, you know, what she was saying was making sense. I was just more frustrated because like, I just like, we want the stuff to be like launched. And so yeah,
there's some good and some bad.
Some good and I felt meh, like I was,
lower.
yeah.
All right, just a little bit lower, and then so there was some frustration, even though there's some good feedback too.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. So this could look like that. Okay. And then did it get resolved?
It did, and you know, I made sure to tell Charlene, I was like, I would love to, you know, next time around, talk with you beforehand, before everything, or you know, beforehand when all things are said and done, so that we can like just kind of go over like my next round, just like, you know, talk to you about and see any feedback you might have before we're so close to launch. But the hardest thing about that is I have that like Friday, and then that Monday I have to start pushing out the posters. So I was like, how am I going to do that? But I would, it's something I would like to talk with. She's very knowledgeable, and like she had great feedback, but I was like, there again, that frustration, that's just like, it's hard because I have to make sure that it's like, I get the information about it on a Friday, and then needs to be sent to the printers that Monday or as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So it's like there's no time to waste with like email back and forth and stuff
Right.
like that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So this ultimately got done. You actually met all the requirements that she.
Yes.
Read? Okay.
Yeah. Everything was done, and once I clarified for her kind of the context of like, hey, I also did marketing materials of different sizes so that they'd be appropriate for the web. I think she definitely felt a little better.
Okay.
But just the seeing the poster and stuff like that, I think initially took her and was like, okay, this is like, I could see why she would be nervous.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Let's see. It's still kind of early in 2020.
Yeah.
And I want you to think about what would be ideal for the future. So I want to actually give you some superpowers. I'm going to give you a couple magic wands.
Oh, this is great.
Okay. So if you can sprinkle the magic wand over 2020, what would you love to see differently?
I would just love to see a more streamlined process that I can just, when I go into it, I don't feel that I'm reacting to, now we got to do this. Just having my tasks and like a calendar, because we do it. It's like every time we've done it, you know, we start off with the calendar and the tasks and things like that. But it's clear that we need to do something just a little differently, with just a more streamlined, being able to have the poster like ready to go without this constant like the back and forth and the approval. So kind of like less time for between follow-up and stuff like that. Just having it more of a solid answers. Yeah.
That's great. That's a really good use of one magic wand.
Yeah.
But I gave you a couple.
Oh, you gave me a couple.
And I want you to go back to like how you started this conversation around what you care most about.
Yeah.
And you have that type of power. Like,
Yes.
What do you really want to do to have major impact in this area?
So I want all the students to be excited about the Action Lab and want for the Action Lab to be a program like where I wouldn't even really like the students would just, as soon as we put the announcement out, students would just know, right? And students would just be like, oh, I want to be in that program. And what I care about, again, connecting with the students and wanting to help them as they kind of embark on their, like, this journey of, like, being on a research team and doing good work in the community and moving the needle. So that would be, like, to have the Action Lab have this, like, already have, like, the brand of, like, okay, well, we're definitely going to sign up for that next semester.
Yeah.
So, yeah, being a little easier,
So if the Action Lab was like the hot concert of the night.
Exactly.
One of those things?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
A must-have?
Yeah, like
Okay.
a must-have.
Or
Like
an
you
Apple
have
Store
to
or
shine
something?
Exactly. We want to be the Apple Store. Exactly.
Okay,
Bill.
got it. Couple other follow-up questions and then we'll be wrapped. How do you measure success? Like, what's a key performance indicator that this is working? Everything's working, that the process, even the impact?
For me, I would say that there's the amount of folks that like apply. That does make a big difference.
Yep.
Because, for example, so not last semester, but the semester before, we were low on applicants. So I was going into this past round, like, really nervous. And one thing that I was really proud of was that we did have the highest number of people that applied. And so that meant a lot to me, because that's just showing, like, the interest and that people really do
Yeah.
want to be in this program.
So what's good, better, and then astronomically best for levels?
So I think it would be, like, it's good to have, say, it'd be good if we could get, I'm trying to think, because I think 50 is the ideal. So I think what we did around this time was, like, good, like, you know, the 40, 45. Better would be, right, that, like, 50, 60.
Yeah.
But it would be, like, astronomical or almost unfathomable for me if we got, like, you know, 70 to 90 or even like 100. That would be, like, mind-blowing for me. But it would be really cool because it's like, oh my goodness, you know, these people are really hearing about this and really interested and excited about it the way that we're excited about it.
Yeah, and what's the time commitment if they did opt in?
So if you opt in, there's the Monday class is 1:15 to 3:55, and then you have your Tuesday through Thursday class, which is another, like, longer class, 1:15 to 3:55, you know, another 3 hours.
Yeah, and you get credits for this?
Yep, you get credits. Yep, and it depends on, again, Capital and Trinity have the different types of what it fulfills, but
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, got it. Would you call it an elective from a course standpoint?
I think from a course standpoint, Megan might have the better answer, but I would say, yeah, it's not like, yes, it's something that it gets cross-referenced with other, like, urban studies majors, I do think it would be more of an elective. It does fulfill a numerical and symbolic reason requirement, but I think it is more of an elective.
Okay, great. Is there anything else that you would love to say, or as we wrap?
Just thank you for your time and thank you for helping me out, because it feels good to talk this through, especially, like, I'm very close to this, right? So I've been thinking about it.
Yeah, ditto. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
Really
of
appreciate it.
course.
Okay.